The transmission came at exactly midnight, Earth Standard Time. Every screen on every human ship, every station, and every colony lit up with the same message. The face that appeared was not human. It had 6 eyes arranged in a circle, skin that looked like wet stone, and a mouth that opened sideways instead of up and down. Admiral was drinking her evening tea when her screen flickered to life. She set down her cup slowly and watched with calm eyes. She had commanded the starship Horizon for 15 years. She had seen many strange things in the darkness between stars, but she had never seen this creature before. "Attention, species designated human," the alien spoke. Its voice was deep and rumbled like thunder. "I am High Commander of the United Galaxy Council. By unanimous vote of all 12 member civilizations, we hereby declare war upon your kind." Raised one eyebrow. She picked up her tea again and took a small sip. The alien continued speaking. "Your expansion into our territories has gone unchallenged for too long. Your ships travel where they should not go. Your colonies spread like disease across worlds that belong to others. This ends now." On the bridge of the Horizon, the crew sat frozen at their stations. Lieutenant, the communications officer, stared at her screen with wide eyes. Ensign, barely 20 years old, gripped the arms of his chair so hard his knuckles turned white. "The Council fleet numbers 5,000 warships," announced proudly. "Each vessel carries weapons that can turn planets to ash. You have no hope of victory. We offer you one chance to surrender. Lay down your arms. Accept Council rule. Your species will be allowed to survive as servants." The transmission showed images behind the alien commander. Massive ships filled the screen, each one larger than any human vessel had ever seen. They bristled with cannons and missile tubes. Their hulls gleamed with advanced armor. "You have 7 Earth days to respond," said. "After that, we come for you." The screen went dark. For a long moment, nobody on the bridge spoke, then turned to look at her admiral. Her face was pale. "Ma'am, what do we do?" Finished her tea. She stood up from her command chair and straightened her uniform. A small smile played at the corner of her lips. "Forward this transmission to Earth Command. Priority 1. Flag it for General's immediate attention." "Yes, ma'am." Fingers flew across her console. Should I include a message?" Thought for a moment, then she nodded. "Yes, tell the General they finally showed themselves just as we predicted. Phase 1 begins." Type the message, her confusion clear on her face. She did not understand. None of the crew did, but they trusted their admiral. 12 hours later on Earth, General stood before a massive window in his office. The city of New Seoul spread out below him, lights twinkling in the early morning darkness. Flying cars moved between towering buildings. People walked on elevated walkways, going about their normal lives. They did not know what was coming. His assistant captain entered the room. She was young but brilliant, chosen personally for her sharp mind. "Sir, the transmission from Admiral has been. The alien declaration is real." Did not turn from the window. "I know. The public will panic when they find out. The Council fleet is massive. Their technology appears far superior to ours." "Does it?" Finally turned. His face was old, but his eyes were sharp like knives. He had gray hair and deep lines on his face from years of carrying heavy burdens, but there was no fear in him. There was something else, something that looked almost like satisfaction. Sir was confused. Walked to his desk. He pressed his hand against a hidden panel, and a section of the wall slid open. Behind it was a second room, filled with screens and holographic displays. Information scrolled across every surface. "Come with me, Captain. It is time you learned the truth." Followed him into the hidden room. Her eyes grew wide as she saw what the screens displayed. Ship designs she had never seen before. Fleet numbers that seemed impossible. Weapons that existed only in science fiction stories. Or so she had thought. "For 200 years," said quietly, Humanity has known about the Galaxy Council. We detected their signals. We found their abandoned outposts. We studied their technology from crashed ships they thought were destroyed. His mouth fell open. 200 years, but the official record says we made first contact only 50 years ago. The official record is a lie, smiled grimly. A careful, necessary lie. We let the Council believe we were young and weak. We let them think our expansion was the clumsy stumbling of a primitive species. Every time they watched us, we showed them exactly what we wanted them to see. But why? Because the Council does not welcome new species, Captain. They conquer them. They enslave them. Every civilization that revealed their true strength was crushed before they could become a threat. Pointed to one of the screens. It showed historical records from dozens of alien worlds. We found the evidence. Dead civilizations. Entire species wiped out because they were too proud to hide. Felt cold, so we hid. We built in secret, we trained in the shadows, and we waited, turned to face her fully. The Council thinks they face a species with 200 warships and primitive weapons. They are wrong. How wrong, sir? Smile grew wider. Our true fleet numbers 15,000 vessels. Our weapons technology is not behind theirs. It is ahead, way ahead. We have spent 2 centuries preparing for this exact moment. He pressed another button and a hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed the Sol system, humanity's home. Around every planet, hidden in asteroid fields, buried in moons, there were military installations, shipyards, weapons platforms, an army waiting in the darkness. The Council just made the worst mistake in galactic history, said. They declared war on humanity, and now they will learn why that was a very, very bad idea. He turned to Captain. Send word to all hidden commands. Activate Protocol Dawn. We have 7 days to get ready. His eyes burned with cold fire. And then we show them exactly what humanity can do. Saluted sharply. Yes, sir. She paused at the door. Sir, what should I tell Admiral? Looked out at the city once more. The sun was beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. A new day was dawning, and soon, a new era for humanity. Tell her to position the horizon at the edge of the Sol system. She will be our welcoming committee. He paused, then added with a slight smile, and tell her she was right. This is going to be fun. 7 days passed faster than anyone expected. On the 8th day, the Galaxy Council fleet arrived. Commander stood on the observation deck of the defense station orbiting Mars. She was 35 years old with short black hair and eyes that never missed anything. She had earned her rank through 20 years of service, starting as a simple pilot and working her way up through skill and determination. Now she watched the sky fill with enemy ships. They came out of hyperspace in waves. First 100, then 1,000, then more and more until the darkness of space was dotted with hostile vessels. Each ship was enormous, covered in strange symbols and carrying enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Count asked calmly. Her sensor officer, Lieutenant, studied her screens. Final count is 5,217 enemy vessels, Commander, plus approximately 300 support ships. Bigger than they promised, noted. They brought extra friends. Around her, the crew of the Mars defense station worked at their stations. Their faces were tense but not afraid. They had trained for this. They had prepared for years. Every single person in this room knew what was about to happen and they were ready. On the main screen, the alien fleet spread out in a massive formation. The largest ship, a vessel so big it made the others look like toys, moved to the front. This was the Council flagship, where High Commander commanded his forces. A transmission came through. The alien commander's 6 eyes stared out from the screen with obvious contempt. Humans, your time is over. You did not surrender, so now you will die. This is your final moment. Look upon your destroyers and know despair. Smiled, it was not a nice smile. Would you like to say anything else? Last words are important. Seemed confused by her confidence. You mock us, with our fleet at your doorstep. You are either brave or stupid. Why not both? Shrugged. But before you start shooting, I have a question. Did you really think we did not know you were coming? For the first time, something like uncertainty flickered across the alien commander's face. What do you mean? Your hyperspace signatures were detected 3 days ago. We have been watching you travel here. We knew exactly when you would arrive and exactly where you would appear. Leaned forward. Did you really think we were not prepared? Recovered quickly, his voice became hard. It does not matter what you know, you cannot stop us. Our weapons will tear through your defenses like paper. Begin the attack. The transmission ended. Across the void of space, 5,000 alien warships powered up their weapons. Energy gathered around their cannons. Missiles loaded into launch tubes. The greatest military force the galaxy had ever assembled prepared to strike. And then they fired. The barrage was incredible. Beams of energy bright enough to blind filled the space between the fleet and Mars. Missiles by the thousands streaked forward, each one carrying enough explosive power to level a city. The attack was meant to overwhelm, to crush, to end the war before it truly began. Commander did not flinch. She simply said one word: shields. Across the Sol system, hidden systems came online. Giant generators buried deep in moons and asteroids hummed to life. Energy fields expanded outward, connecting with each other, forming a barrier that surrounded the entire inner solar system. The alien weapons hit the shields. The shields held. Every beam of energy splashed against the invisible wall and scattered into harmless light. Every missile exploded against the barrier, their fire blooming and dying without touching anything important. The greatest attack in galactic history struck humanity's defenses and did absolutely nothing. On the Council flagship, High Commander stared at his screens in disbelief. Impossible, those energy readings. That technology should not exist. His officers rushed around the bridge in confusion. They had never seen shields so powerful. Their computers could not explain how the humans had built such a thing. It went against everything they knew about physics. Fire again, commanded. Maximum power all ships. The fleet fired again, and again, and again. For 1 full hour, they poured everything they had at the human defenses. They used weapons that had destroyed entire civilizations. They used techniques that had never failed before. The shields did not even flicker. Commander watched the light show with amusement. She turned to, "How are our power levels?" "Shields are at 98% efficiency, Commander. Their weapons are barely making a dent. At this rate, they could fire for 100 years and not break through." Good, nodded. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them Phase 1 is complete. The enemy has shown us everything they have." She looked back at the screen, at the alien fleet that was now starting to show signs of panic. Their formation was breaking as ships tried different positions, different angles, searching for any weakness in the human defenses. There were no weaknesses. Meanwhile, deep in the asteroid belt, Captain Minu sat in the cockpit of his fighter. Around him, hidden in hollowed-out rocks and behind sensor-blocking fields, were 10,000 other pilots. Each one sat in a ship that the Galaxy Council did not know existed. Minu was young, only 28, with a quick smile and quicker reflexes. He had wanted to be a pilot since he was a child, and now he was about to fly in the most important battle in human history. His radio crackled. "All squadrons, this is Admiral. You are watching the enemy waste their ammunition on our shields. I want you to remember this moment. Remember how confident they were. Remember how they thought they could destroy us." Minu gripped his controls. "In exactly 2 hours, we launch the counterattack. Until then, stay hidden. Stay quiet. Let them tire themselves out." His voice carried a hint of dark humor. And when we finally show ourselves, make sure they regret every single shot they fired." The radio went silent. Minyu looked at the pilot in the ship next to his, a woman named Sara who had been his wingman for 3 years. She caught his eye through her cockpit window and nodded once. No words were needed. They both knew what was coming. Back on the alien flagship, High Commander had stopped the attack. His fleet had used nearly a quarter of their ammunition, and the human shield still stood strong. His officers looked at him with fear in their eyes. "How is this possible?" one of them asked. "Our intelligence said humans were primitive. They should not have this technology." Slammed his fist against his command chair. "Then our intelligence was wrong. Clearly the humans have been hiding their true capabilities." But why would they hide? Why pretend to be weak? The question hung in the air, and slowly, terribly, the answer began to dawn on the alien commander. If the humans had been hiding, if they had been pretending to be weak, then what else were they hiding? What else did they have? For the first time since he had taken command of the Council fleet, High Commander felt something he had not felt in centuries. He felt afraid. And somewhere in the asteroid belt, 10,000 human pilots waited in silence. The real battle had not even started. 2 hours felt like 2 years for the Council fleet. They floated in space, watching the human shields shimmer with quiet power, and they did not know what to do. High Commander had ordered his ships to conserve ammunition while his scientists tried to find a weakness in the barrier. They found nothing. On the Council flagship, the mood had changed from confidence to confusion to something close to despair. Officers whispered to each other in corners. Soldiers looked at their weapons and wondered if they would ever get to use them. The great invasion that was supposed to end humanity in days had stopped before it truly began. Then the human shields dropped. "Commander," a sensor officer shouted across the bridge, "the enemy barrier is powering down." Rushed to the main screen. The officer was right. The massive energy field that had protected the humans was fading away, disappearing like morning mist under the sun. Within moments, there was nothing between the Council fleet and the inner solar system. "They surrender?" one officer asked hopefully. "No," stared at the screen with narrowed eyes. "This is something else. This is." He never finished his sentence. Space exploded with human ships. They came from everywhere. From the asteroid belt came wave after wave of fighters, thousands of small ships moving in perfect formation. From behind the gas giants came larger vessels, cruisers and destroyers that had been hiding in the shadow of the planets. From the dark spaces between worlds came the biggest ships of all, battleships and carriers that dwarfed anything the Council had ever seen. Captain Minyu pushed his fighter to maximum speed as he led his squadron into the light. The feeling was incredible. After years of training in secret, after decades of hiding in the shadows, they were finally showing the galaxy what humanity could do. "All pilots, this is Admiral," her voice came through every radio in the fleet. "The enemy thought we were weak. The enemy thought we were afraid. Today we show them the truth. Today we show them what happens when you threaten our home." The human fleet numbered 15,000 vessels. They surrounded the Council armada from every direction, boxing them in like hunters surrounding prey. The alien ships, which had seemed so massive and threatening before, suddenly looked small and alone. On his flagship watched the human fleet appear with growing horror. That is impossible. Our scouts said they had 200 ships. This is 15,247 vessels, Commander, his sensor officer reported. His voice was shaking. "Including 12 super battleships of a class we have never seen before." 15,000, repeated. The number did not seem real. How could they have hidden so many ships? How could they have built such a fleet without anyone knowing? A transmission came through. Admiral's face appeared on the screen. She was an older woman with gray hair pulled back tight and eyes that had seen many battles. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "High Commander," she said calmly, "you declared war on humanity. You threatened to turn our planets to ash. You offered us the choice between death and slavery." Said nothing, there was nothing to say. "Now I offer you a choice," continued. "You can surrender. Your crews will be treated well, your ships will be captured intact, and no one needs to die today. Or," she paused, "or you can fight, and you will learn why that would be a very bad decision." Around the Council fleet, human weapons powered up. The alien sensors screamed with warnings as thousands of targeting systems locked onto their ships. The Council fleet was surrounded and completely unprepared for what they faced. For a long moment, considered his options. His pride told him to fight. His duty told him to protect his crews. His fear told him that fighting would mean death for everyone under his command. "You expect us to surrender without a fight," he finally said. "The Council has never surrendered to anyone." "There is a first time for everything," shrugged. "But if you want to test our weapons, we are happy to demonstrate. Captain Menu." Menu's voice came over the channel, young and eager. "Yes, Admiral." "Pick one of their smaller ships, something unimportant. Show them what our fighters can do." "With pleasure, ma'am." Menu banked his fighter toward a Council destroyer, one of the smaller vessels in the enemy fleet. His squadron followed, 20 ships moving as one. The alien destroyer tried to target them, but the human fighters were too fast, too agile. Menu lined up his shot. His targeting computer locked on. He pressed the trigger. A beam of light shot from his fighter, so bright it was hard to look at. It hit the alien destroyer and cut through the hull like a knife through paper. The ship broke in half, then exploded, then vanished in a ball of fire that faded quickly in the vacuum of space. One shot, one hit, one kill. On the Council flagship watched his destroyer die. His face went pale. "That was, a fighter did that." "Our smallest fighter," confirmed. "With its weakest weapon. Imagine what our battleships can do." She leaned closer to the camera. "Now shall we continue this demonstration, or are you ready to talk?" The Council fleet was in chaos. Officers shouted at each other. Soldiers looked at their weapons and realized how useless they were. Some ships tried to run, but human vessels blocked every escape route. In that moment of panic, something unexpected happened. A transmission came through on all channels, cutting through the chaos with calm authority. It was from another Council ship, a diplomatic vessel that had traveled with the fleet. "Humans?" The voice belonged to an alien Menu did not recognize. It was smaller than species, with 4 arms and large dark eyes that looked almost sad. "I am Ambassador Wynn of the species. I represent one of the 12 Council civilizations. I wish to speak." Admiral raised an eyebrow. "We are listening." "Not all of us wanted this war," Wynn said quietly. "The Council is not a partnership of equals. It is a dictatorship run by the strongest species. And many others were forced to join this invasion against our will." "You expect sympathy." The voice was cold. "No, I expect nothing." Wynn's eyes were filled with something that might have been hope. "But I offer information. The Council has ruled through fear for thousands of years. They have destroyed any species that might challenge them. They attacked you because they feared what you might become. And now they know their fear was justified," said. "Yes," Wynn nodded slowly. "And now perhaps things can change. If you win this battle, if you break the Council's power, there are many civilizations who would welcome you as liberators, not conquerors." The transmission ended, looked thoughtfully at the screen for a moment. Then she turned her attention back to. "It seems your allies are not as loyal as you thought, Commander. Make your choice. Surrender or die." Looked around his bridge. He saw the fear in his officers' eyes. He saw the hopelessness in their faces. He knew that if he ordered them to fight, they would die, all of them, and they would accomplish nothing. His pride screamed at him to resist, but even pride had limits. I I need to consult with my government, he said finally. I do not have the authority to surrender the fleet. You have 1 hour. His voice left no room for argument. After that, we take your answer as no, and then we stop being polite. The screen went dark, and High Commander, the most powerful military leader in the Galaxy Council, sat down heavily in his chair and wondered how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. Outside, the human fleet waited in perfect formation, patient, ready, and absolutely, completely unafraid. 1 hour passed, no surrender came. Fleet Commander stood on the bridge of the super battleship Unity, the largest vessel humanity had ever built. It was a monster of a ship, 2 kilometers long, carrying enough firepower to destroy a small planet. And it was just one of 12. Time is up, sir, his tactical officer reported. Nodded slowly. He was a quiet man, serious and thoughtful, not given to speeches or dramatic gestures, but he understood the importance of this moment. What happened in the next few hours would determine the future of humanity, and perhaps the future of the entire galaxy. All ships, he said calmly into his communicator. This is Fleet Commander. The enemy has refused to surrender. Commence attack. Try to disable rather than destroy when possible. We want prisoners, not corpses. Across the battlefield, 15,000 human ships moved as one. They advanced on the Council fleet from every direction, tightening the circle like a closing fist. The aliens tried to fight back. Of course they did. They had no other choice. Energy beams lanced out from Council ships, missiles launched in desperate waves, fighters scrambled to meet the human attack. But it was like throwing stones at a hurricane. Captain Minu dove through the enemy formation, his squadron cutting paths of destruction through the alien ranks. His fighter twisted and spun, dodging return fire that was too slow, too clumsy to hit him. Every shot he fired found its target. Enemy fighters exploded around him like fireworks. This is too easy, his wingman Sora shouted over the radio. There was disbelief in her voice. Their targeting systems cannot track us. They built their weapons to fight each other, Minu replied, banking hard to avoid a collision. We built ours to fight them. Big difference. It was true. For 200 years, humanity had studied Council technology. They had learned every strength and every weakness. They had designed their ships specifically to counter everything the aliens could throw at them. And now, finally, all that preparation was paying off. On the Council flagship, High Commander watched his fleet being torn apart. Ships exploded in every direction. His tactical display was a mess of red warning lights and dying signals. Half his fleet was already gone, and the battle had barely begun. Pull back, he ordered desperately. All ships retreat. But there was nowhere to retreat to. The human fleet surrounded them completely. Every direction led to more enemy ships, more human weapons, more death. We cannot retreat, Commander, his navigation officer said. His voice was hollow with despair. They have blocked every exit. Slammed his fist against his chair. Then we fight to the last ship. We are the Council. We do not fall to primitives. But his words rang hollow. Everyone on the bridge knew the truth. This was not a battle, it was a slaughter. Then the humans did something unexpected. They stopped firing. The sudden silence was almost as shocking as the attack had been. Weapons went quiet. Ships stopped advancing. The human fleet simply held its position, surrounding what remained of the Council armada. Another transmission came through. This time it was not Admiral. It was General himself speaking from Earth. High Commander said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. You have lost. Your fleet is destroyed. Your invasion has failed, but this does not have to be the end. Stared at the screen. His face was twisted with anger and humiliation. What do you want, human? To gloat? To mock us? No, shook his head. I want to offer you a choice. A real choice, not the false choice you offered us. What choice? Surrender now, and your surviving crews will be treated with honor. They will be fed, housed, and eventually returned to there. No one else needs to die today. Paused. Or you can continue fighting. You can throw away the lives of every being under your command for nothing, because you will lose either way. The only question is how many die before you accept that. On the bridge of his crippled flagship, looked around at his officers. They were watching him with desperate eyes. They wanted him to surrender. They wanted to live. But was old and proud. He had served the council for 300 years. He had conquered dozens of species. He had never failed, never surrendered, never known defeat. Until now. Why? He finally asked. Why did you hide your strength? Why did you let us attack you? You could have revealed your fleet and avoided this battle entirely. Smiled slightly. Because we needed the galaxy to see what the council really is, a bully that preys on the weak. You came here to destroy us, to enslave our people, to wipe out our civilization. You made that choice, not us. And now everyone in the galaxy knows, continued. Every species that the council has oppressed is watching this battle. They are seeing your mighty fleet fall to the species you called primitive. They are seeing that the council can be beaten. Understood then. This was not just a military victory. It was a message, a signal to every enslaved world, every conquered people, every species that had lived in fear of the council for thousands of years. The council was not invincible. The council could fall. So this is your plan, said bitterly. Start a revolution. No, replied. Your plan was to start a war. Our plan is to end one. The war the council has waged against the galaxy for. The war against freedom, against progress, against anyone who dared to be different. He leaned forward. Today, that war ends. The only question is whether you are smart enough to recognize it. For a long moment there was silence. Looked at the remains of his fleet. He looked at his terrified crew. He looked at the overwhelming human force surrounding him. Then slowly he reached for his communicator. All council ships, this is High Commander, stand down, power down weapons, prepare to be boarded. A wave of relief washed through what remained of the alien fleet. Ships stopped moving. Weapons went cold. The battle was over. But on's bridge, one officer stood up in protest. Commander, you cannot surrender. The High Council will never forgive this. Looked at him with tired eyes. The High Council is not here. They sent us to fight and die while they sat safely in their palaces. Let them come explain to these humans why we should keep fighting. He turned back to the screen where still waited. We surrender, human. Do with us what you will. Nodded respectfully. You made the right choice, Commander. Your people will not suffer for this. You have my word. The screen went dark, and across the battlefield, human ships began the long process of accepting the surrender of the mightiest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. In his fighter, Captain Minu let out a long breath. It is over, he said softly. We did it. Beside him, Sora laughed, a sound of pure relief. We did it. We really did it. But somewhere in the back of his mind, Minu knew the truth. The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. The galaxy would never be the same after today. And humanity was just getting started. 3 weeks after the battle, Lieutenant walked through the corridors of the Council flagship. The ship was quiet now, its weapons cold, its crew either gone or under guard. Human engineers moved through the hallways, studying the alien technology with curious eyes. Was young, only 26, but she had been chosen for one of the most important tasks in human history. She was the official representative who would accept the Council's formal surrender. General had chosen her specifically. You are young, he had told her. You represent the future. When the galaxy looks at you, they will see what humanity can become. Now she stood before the doors to the council chamber, where the leaders of 12 alien civilizations waited. She took a deep breath, straightened her uniform, and walked in. The chamber was enormous, built to impress and intimidate. 12 thrones arranged in a circle, each one designed for a different species. Some were large enough to hold creatures the size of elephants. Others were small and delicate, meant for beings no bigger than children. But the thrones were empty. The council leaders sat instead at a simple table in the center of the room, surrounded by human guards. Their positions of power meant nothing now. High Commander was there, along with ambassadors and rulers from each council species. Ambassador Wynn, the small who had spoken during the battle, sat apart from the others, watching with those large, dark eyes. Walked to the center of the room. Every eye was on her. She could feel the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. "Leaders of the Galaxy Council," she said, her voice clear and steady. "You declared war on humanity. You came to our home with 5,000 warships. You promised to turn our worlds to ash and enslave our people." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "You failed." The council members shifted uncomfortably. Some looked angry, some looked ashamed, simply stared at the floor, his defeat complete. "By the laws you yourselves created," continued, "we have the right to do anything we want. We could we could enslave your populations. We could wipe you from the galaxy as you have done to so many others." Fear flickered in the eyes of the council leaders. They knew their own laws. They knew what they had done to conquered species in the past. "But we will not." The words caused confusion. Several leaders looked up in surprise, even raised his head. "Humanity does not believe in conquest," said. "We do not believe in slavery. We believe that every species has the right to live free, to grow, to reach for the stars in their own way." She walked closer to the table, looking each leader in the eye. "The Galaxy Council is dissolved. Effective immediately, all member species are released from their obligations. All conquered worlds are granted independence. All slave populations are freed." A wave of shock rippled through the room. Ambassador Wynn's eyes widened. A sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob escaped from the diplomat. "But," continued, "freedom is not enough. The galaxy has been ruled by fear for too long. Species have been taught to hate and fight each other. That must change." She pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. A hologram appeared, showing a new symbol, a circle of hands, each one different, reaching toward a common center. Humanity proposes a new alliance, not a council that rules through power, but a partnership that works through cooperation. Any species that wants to join is welcome. Any species that wants to remain independent may do so. There will be no forced membership, no conquest, no threats. "Why?" The question came from one of the larger aliens, a creature with scales and sharp teeth. "Why would you show mercy? We tried to destroy you." Looked at him calmly. "Because destroying you would make us no better than you were. Because there are children on your worlds who did nothing wrong and deserve a chance at a better future. Because building is harder than destroying, and we choose the harder path." She smiled slightly. "Also, because humanity has a saying, living well is the best revenge. We will show the galaxy what we can build, and that will hurt your pride far more than any weapon." For a long moment no one spoke. Then, slowly, Ambassador Wynn stood up. The small walked around the table and stopped in front of. "The people have been slaves to this council for 3,000 years, Wynn said quietly. "We were conquered, our culture suppressed, our population controlled. We had given up hope of ever being free." The ambassador looked up with tears in those large, dark eyes. "And then you came. You who were supposed to be weak. You who were supposed to be primitive. You showed us that hope is not foolish, that freedom is possible." Wynn bowed deeply. "The people accept your offer of alliance. We will stand with humanity now and always." One by one, other ambassadors rose. Species that had been enemies of the council. Species that had been conquered and oppressed. Even some who had been loyal members began to waver, seeing a new path forward. Not everyone accepted. Some leaders were too proud, too angry, too afraid of change. They walked out of the chamber, returning to their ships, their futures uncertain. But enough stayed, enough agreed, and when the final count was done, 7 of the 12 council species had agreed to join humanity's new alliance. General watched the ceremony from Earth. Beside him stood Admiral, Commander, Fleet Commander, and Captain Minu, the heroes of the battle, the people who had made this moment possible. "Not bad," said quietly. 7 out of 12 on the first day. "The others will come eventually," replied. "Once they see that we mean what we say, once they see the benefits of cooperation instead of competition." Minu shook his head in amazement. "A week ago they were trying to kill us. Now we are allies." "That is how change happens," said. "Fast and unexpected. The galaxy will never be the same." Nodded slowly. He looked out the window at the stars, at the vast darkness that held billions of worlds and trillions of beings. Humanity had taken its first steps into that larger universe, and they had made an impression that would not be forgotten. "We spent 200 years hiding," he said. 200 years preparing, building, waiting. Everyone thought we were weak. Everyone thought we were afraid." He smiled, a rare expression on his serious face. "Now they know the truth. Humanity was never weak. We were patient. We were strategic. And when we finally showed ourselves, we changed everything." On the former council flagship, Lieutenant finished the surrender ceremony. She shook hands with Ambassador Wynne and the other Allied leaders. Documents were signed. Promises were made. A new chapter in galactic history began. As she walked back to the human shuttle that would take her home, past a window that looked out at the stars, she stopped for a moment, staring at the infinite darkness. Somewhere out there were countless worlds she had never seen, species she had never met, adventures waiting to happen. And humanity was finally ready to meet them. She thought about the alien declaration that had started everything, the arrogant message that had threatened to destroy her people. The question hung in her mind. "Is that all you've got?" Smiled to herself. As it turned out, the answer had been yes. The Galaxy Council had given everything they had, and it had not been nearly enough. She continued walking toward her shuttle, toward Earth, toward a future brighter than anyone had dared to imagine. The war was over. The real adventure was just beginning.